The speed with which organizations are having to adapt to meet new market needs have been really increasing, meaning that businesses need to be more nimble, more adaptable, more agile than ever before. And we at REBA are seeing more organizations rethink their structures and their hierarchies to release themselves from older, more formal constraints. So if you're doing that at your organization or thinking of doing that, what role does reward play in these changes? How can you help these changes? Or what do you need to watch out for where you might be slowing down changes because of current reward practices? I'm really pleased to be talking to Global Reward Director Nicola Wells about the journey that Unilever is on to delayer its hierarchies. And in this video, we are going to uncover why Unilever is delayering, the role of culture and well-being, what this means for pay reviews and promotions, as well as the impact on the talent pool. So Nicola, lovely to have you here. And
nice
this has been an enormous project that you've been working on, running over several years, and Unilever's only partway through it. So let's start with the vision. Why is Unilever doing this?
I think, as you said at the beginning, to be fair, Debbie, the world has been changing. So we see a need for flexibility. And that flexibility comes from not only the business wanting to be more flexible and to be more agile, and many of your audience will recognise some of the words that I'm saying. So to work with an agile methodology, to consider different employment contracts, and not least, as we've all experienced, the rapid change that the latest pandemic has enforced upon us, but also to be flexible for employees, the way that we all want to work, the way that people need to respect their other duties within their working, within their lives, as it were, be that being a carer, be that wanting to do some community work, be that wanting to support other charities, or just to experience different types of working. And so I think as a business, we've been really trying to stretch the boundaries to understand what it is that we can do to help facilitate that much more flexible organisation. So, and behind that, we've therefore looked at the structures sometimes, and the traditional hierarchies and ways of working may not be so fit for purpose for a future organisation, and how you want to run both your business and how those that are most important to you, which are your employees, want to run their own careers and working opportunities. So
fantastic. And part of the other question I wanted to ask you about as well-being is a really important part of Unilever. Unilever is very well known for its culture of well-being. So within all that, what role is well-being playing in this huge shift in the way of working at Unilever?
I think I would say front and centre is what I would say. I mean, as you say, well-being is a very important element of how we do our business in Unilever, from all of our leaders all through our organisation. But well-being, again, comes in lots of different guises. And what we also find is that individuals' well-being is impacted by so many things. And we focus very much over the past few years on specifics of well-being, be that financial well-being, be that mental well-being. But behind that, the triggers to whether your well-being is high or low can be from how you're working, what you're working on, etc. So the type of role you're doing, how engaged you feel, those sorts of things all have a part to play. So whilst at first sight it may not seem straight away that looking at the org structure or delayering is immediately playing on well-being, it actually is from behind the scenes. And that comes from, as I said at the beginning, where this, looking at the org structure is not only for the business, but also for how employees work. So being able to give people the ability to gain experiences, the ability to move around in their careers with less hierarchy, not to feel that they always have to be pushing for a particular grade or particular promotion or rung on the ladder, whatever an organisation is facing, but actually that they can go and develop their skills, they can have opportunities in different walks of the business much more fluidly, can play a real part on somebody's well-being and their time at work, which is such a lot of time, feeling really meaningful, supportive, and really driving the purpose that they're there for. So I think, as I say, at first glance, maybe it doesn't look directly involved, but actually it's front and centre to give that opportunity, flexibility and choice, because you don't have the enforced layering to employees and the business to drive what is needed for an individual, and also the drivers of the need of the business.
That makes complete sense to me, but it's quite a big change, this idea of a different organizational structure, as you say, not necessarily climbing rungs on a ladder as we've all been trained to do. So if you've got employees who aren't necessarily always striving to move upwards, and you're talking about people moving around, so they'd be moving perhaps sideways at time, what does this mean for conventional reward strategies? How are those changing to adapt to this new way of doing things?
Yeah, it's another big question, and we are on a journey here at Unilever. So whatever I'm saying, we don't have all the perfect answers. What we've done with our operations is we had a more layered approach historically, and we have delayered our top 3 tiers of the organisation already. So as you say, Debbie, we've been on a journey with this. What that's meant is where you had more granular layers in an organisation, and typically in reward, you would have attached pay scales to those, and then you would have more set pay reviews on an annual basis, etc. And it's quite formal and process driven. By delayering, and comes with a combination, we have removed some of those layers, broadened our pay scales, which gives you the fluidity to allow people to move and grow experience, but not necessarily need to be promoted. So they can still get the incremental rewards that they are deserved. It also enables us to, and we're at the start of this journey, as I'm sure many companies are as well, around skills-based reward. What is it? So we want to drive experiences, we want to drive skills, but how you start to do that. But if you have so many layers and you want to apply a skills-based reward on top, you start to come into quite a lot of complexity. Having a broader range and a flatter structure enables us to focus more heavily on people's skills, and then look at the opportunity to consider how we reward someone for their specialist skills. In addition to that, the delayering, we've looked at some of those traditional, like we say, the annual processes, and particularly annual pay review, which becomes, a huge deal in most organisations. But the thing that we all know from many, many studies is that individuals respond very well to smaller bouts of recognition, be that small recognition or smaller incremental salary increases. So again, what we've tried to do with our delayered populations is move away from an annual pay review and move to what we term an open salary review. So there is still a budget, but the line manager is afforded that budget at the beginning of our financial year, and they can choose when, who, how much they give a pay rise to throughout the full 12 months, rather than having this one drop dead moment. And what that enables, again, is that maybe instead of giving somebody, depending on what part of the world you're in, but in the Western world, a 2 or a 3% increase, maybe they give a 1.5 and then another 1.5 with some recognition in the middle. For us as a global organisation, we have the extremes of some higher inflation, so you can give more. And then maybe there's also then a broadening increase that has come in because they have acquired new skills. So you start to see this more regular touch point, which again, and going back to the previous conversation on wellbeing, we all know that when you're given something and recognised, that makes you feel good. And so if we can break some of those down, rather than just one big moment in the year, which is lost after maybe 3 to 6 months, now you can do sort of smaller increments as needed. So it's challenged quite a few of our traditional thinking on reward. And as I say, we're getting good feedback from that, but we're still on the journey of, fully implementing throughout,
It definitely sounds far more nimble, reactive, entrepreneurial, flexible, agile, which is part of the bigger project. So that's interesting. So, but whenever there's this level of change and acknowledging that you're still going through it, you can expect some bumps in the road or even full-on roadblocks at times. So what are the things that you so far have found to be absolutely crucial to be aware of when working on this project?
I think probably, and not necessarily in any particular order, there are some, and there are always some, and some of these will be the traditional ones we know of projects. Probably the biggest one that I would say coming out is data. You need to have good data to be able to assess where your people are, to put them into the bands, to really make sure as you're delayering. And that particularly if you are delayering across grades where there are changes not only in salary, but more very traditionally in organisation, there'll be changes in benefits programs. And of course, if you're delayering, collapsing into one, do you level everybody up? Do you find a middle ground? Do you grandfather people on certain benefits? And, so you need to work through. But the only way you can do that is if you have the data. So we're very fortunate to have a strong system with all of our data in. The second, and I've kind of alluded to, is then cost, because delayering can be done, and there are ways that you can do it to keep yourself cost neutral, which we have been looking at and starting to implement. But often you will also find there is incremental cost, because again, if you are collapsing certain grades and you still want pay ranges, are you literally going to start at the bottom of the original pay range and go all the way through to the top? Do you want to move a bit further up if you do and people fall out the bottom of the pay range? So there are considerations there on as you implement, and the policy decisions you make may impact on cost. And then another one which will be very traditional is communication. As much as I've talked about positiveness, and we've had really strong feedback from our line managers on a delayed position, it is not the traditional way, and it can get complex and confusing for our employees. As I always say, in many walks of human life, we are graded on a hierarchy. My young children are at primary school and they're on set tables according to their ability. You do your exam results and you get graded. You move into a job and you are graded into. So it's very innate in our almost DNA of how we live to have those rungs of a ladder. And as much as it gives freedom, for some people it feels a bit like that security of that ladder is being taken away. So communication and understanding to make sure people really see the benefits, understand their opportunities is key. And so having that engagement with the business leaders and how it helps their business, as well as the employees, as well as obviously the HR function, has been critical. And we've hit some of those roadblocks where you've not always foreseen things, and then you kind of manage more quickly. But I can honestly say, even with the roadblocks or the bumps in the road, the flexibility that it affords is very, very positive from everybody. So not something to be undertaken lightly, but the benefit that can come is quite good.
And then one last question related to talent. How's this going to change talent at Unilever? And you and I have spoken about this before, about how we reward sometimes for hot skills, but hot skills don't always stay hot. What do you think is going to come down the line for you with this shift in terms of your talent?
Yeah, I think what this is allowing us to do is be much more nimble with our talent. So talent is always one of the hot topics for every organisation. we're very keen that we focus on our talent, we bring in the right talent, and we have the ability to flex. I think where we had before the traditional kind of layerings, actually moving people became very much about, well, I won't take that job unless I get a promotion. I only want to move to that role because it's a higher grade. I don't want the sideways. So we have lots of conversations that are more negative about somebody's career and building even further our current talent, growing them. And what this enables us to do is, well, we can give you the job that's sideways, but still give you a salary increase. You're not hunting so much for that grade. So that's one. I think the second, where you talk about hot skills, is still really important. And I think there is a spectrum on how you can manage skills, from everything from still having broad banding and just paying people at a kind of a set grade, all the way through to potentially paying individuals based on a collection of skills, almost building blocks, and paying for each skill. And then there's things in the middle. What the broad banding enables us certainly to do is to reflect that we have a much broader pay scale, and we can therefore, where there are hot skills, we can start to say, well, we will position them slightly higher in this range, and you've got such a big range, you can flex on that, rather than having that constant conversation where you say, I need to pay more because that's what the skill is demanding, that's what the market's demanding, but I can't because we're at the top of our decided pay grades sort of thing, pay scale. With the broadband, you have much more flexibility to do that. That's not to say, as I say, that there may be a point where we start to say, do we actually just want to supplement some with a particular amount of money for a particular skill, which is more like an allowance that we can put in and take away as and when the skill sets change. However, we haven't fully gone to that as Unilever. That, as I say, is still the big topic of the day around skills as well. But certainly the broad bands enable us to much more flexibly recognise in a similar population some skills that are higher than others.
This is absolutely fascinating, Nicola, and I could talk to you all afternoon about this, but I'm going to draw our conversation today for a close, and just how much work is changing, how much jobs are changing, and really that absolutely core, crucial role that reward teams play in enabling that change. Even if we don't like it, we are driven to a certain degree by money. So reward really needs to be stepping up and being very much involved in the way business is changing for the future. So thank you so much for sharing what Unilever are doing. Hopefully it's given some other people courage, inspiration, conviction of what they're doing at their organisations. And I wish you all the best as you continue with this project rollout over the coming years. And hopefully we'll catch up in due course to see how things are going.
Thank you, Debbie. Very welcome. I'm always happy to chat.